Hello everyone. Hope you're having a wonderful day. Today, we're diving into a heartwarming story of how Uri and Tu Tieu's relationship grew even stronger after a terrifying accident. And trust me, the way they healed together will surprise you. If you enjoy this video, don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you won't miss any future episodes. In the days that followed, something almost magical happened. Uri flipped a switch and upgraded himself into what could only be described as the maximum level perfect boyfriend. Nobody knew how he pulled it off. He didn't suddenly quit his job. He didn't get a clone. And he definitely didn't gain 48 hours in a single day. But somehow, every morning, without fail, a tiny gift would appear right in front of Tu Tieu, like he'd cast some kind of romantic spell. One day, she woke up to a bouquet of white baby's breath, sitting neatly in a little vase on the table. The flowers were fresh enough that droplets of water still clung to the petals, as if Uri had sprinted home from the flower shop just minutes before she opened her eyes. The next day, it was a tiny stuffed bear, so small it fit perfectly in her palm, but cute enough that she let out an involuntary squeak the moment she saw it. And then came the day he left her favorite chocolates arranged in the shape of a heart. He even added a tiny sticky note with a scribbled smiley face that looked like it took him 3 tries to draw. She held the chocolates up and raised an eyebrow at him. "Are you trying to bribe me?" she teased, her voice light, her eyes sparkling with that familiar mischief he loved so much. Uri immediately folded his arms like he was defending himself in court. "No," he said, looking as serious as someone who was clearly lying. "This is called post-trauma emotional therapy." She snorted. "What kind of therapy sounds that adorable?" "The Uri method," he declared proudly, like it was a patented medical treatment. She tapped her foot. "Oh, wow, someone's confident." "I have to be," he said, his voice softening. "I'm your boyfriend." The line wasn't dramatic. It wasn't flashy, but somehow it melted right into her heart. Slow, warm, sweet, like marshmallows over a campfire. She didn't even try to hide the stupid smile growing on her face. Days passed, then a week, then nearly 2. When they finally returned to the clinic for her follow-up appointment, the doctor looked over her scans and smiled. A real, genuine smile that made Uri lean forward like he was about to explode from anticipation. "The healing is going very well," the doctor said. "Her leg has recovered beautifully. Just avoid running or jumping for now. She can walk as long as she's careful." Uri reacted like someone had just handed him a lottery ticket. "So, she's almost fully recovered?" "Yes," the doctor nodded. "She can walk again." Uri shot up from his chair, fist raised like he'd just scored a goal. "Oh, thank goodness." Before anyone could stop him, he pulled Tu Tieu into a tight hug. So tight the doctor cleared his throat twice and gave him the "please don't break my patient again" stare. Uri immediately loosened his grip like a guilty schoolboy. That afternoon, when they arrived back home, Uri practically kicked the door open and spread his arms dramatically. "Tonight," he declared, "we celebrate. You're healed, and I don't have to order takeout anymore." Tu Tieu crossed her arms and gave him a suspicious look. "Wait, does that mean cooking?" "Exactly," he said proudly. "But this time, you're cooking with me. I refuse, absolutely refuse, to let the frying pan smoke again." She burst into laughter instantly. The last time he cooked, the smoke alarm had cried louder than she did when she had her accident. So she nodded. Fine. But if you burn something, you're doing the dishes. No problem, Yuri replied confidently. I'm practically a chef now. He was not. The kitchen that evening became the most chaotic battlefield on earth. Tu Tieu stood on the right side, slicing vegetables with calm, practiced hands. Yuri stood on the left, chopping chicken with the confidence of a man who had watched one cooking video and felt ready for a Michelin star. The chicken pieces, however, looked like modern art sculptures, each one a different size and shape, as if he were creating a new niche of abstract culinary design. Uri, she said slowly, examining the cutting board. This is chicken, not Lego blocks. It's fine, he insisted. It'll all become food anyway. She stared at him, speechless. I honestly cannot believe you. But she kept smiling, and he kept pretending he actually knew what he was doing. When it came time to stir-fry the vegetables, Uri grabbed the pan with the enthusiasm of a warrior charging into battle. He flicked his wrist, too hard. Several pieces of bok choy flew out as if escaping danger. Whoa! Why is it fighting back? Yuri yelped. Give it to me, she said, reaching for the pan. No, I need to learn. What if you get sick again? I need experience. She narrowed her eyes. Are you cursing me right now? No. This is strategic preparation, he insisted, waving the spatula like he was conducting an orchestra. She couldn't help it. She laughed so hard her stomach hurt. For a moment, she forgot about the accident, the pain, the fear, the night spent worrying. All she saw was Yuri, flustered yet determined, cooking like it was a matter of life and death. When they finally plated their masterpiece, if one could call it that, the dish looked confused. One side was crooked, the other was slightly burnt. But Uri placed it on the table, with pride glowing in his eyes. Behold, he announced, our victory meal. Tu Tieu raised an eyebrow. We're calling this a victory? Yes, he said softly, sitting down beside her. Because it's not about the food. I don't need a fancy restaurant. As long as you're standing here, smiling at me, that's enough. She didn't say anything. She didn't have to. Instead, she stepped forward gently and slipped her arms around his waist from behind, resting her cheek against his back. Me too, she whispered. Even when I'm hurting, tired, or stuck in a wheelchair, I'm never afraid if you're here. Uri turned, resting his forehead against hers. His voice dropped to a warm murmur, soft and steady, like a promise. From now on, he said, we do everything together. Cooking, cleaning, walking. Even falling down, we fall together. She flicked his forehead. We don't need to fall together. No, I mean, stay together. Always. She laughed, nodding. The world outside felt far away, quiet, peaceful, irrelevant. Here, in this messy kitchen with a slightly burnt dinner, everything felt right. That night, their so-called recovery celebration dinner sat proudly in the center of the table, looking like it had survived a minor earthquake and a small kitchen fire. But the moment they took their first bites, both of them paused, then slowly turned toward each other. It wasn't amazing. It wasn't bad either. It just tasted like effort and love and too much soy sauce. Uri clapped his hands dramatically. See? Not poisoned. Success! Tu Tieu laughed. The bar is so low, it's underground. Hey, he protested, mastery takes time. Even the greatest chefs had to start somewhere. She pointed at the burnt edges. Where? At a construction site? Yuri pretended to be offended, gasping loudly. My culinary art is deeply underappreciated. It's deeply something, she muttered under her breath. He leaned in closer, What was that? I said it's deeply memorable. Yuri narrowed his eyes, suspicious, but her grin was too bright, too sincere, and he couldn't hold the fake glare for more than a second. They continued eating, talking between bites, giving sarcastic commentary on each half-crispy, half-overcooked ingredient, like food critics reviewing a dish from another planet. And strangely, it might have been the best dinner they'd had in a long time, not because of flavor, but because of everything around it. The warm kitchen light, the laughter echoing off the walls, the way her legs didn't tremble as much when she stood, the relief in his eyes every time she smiled without flinching. After dinner, Yuri insisted on washing the dishes. No, Tu Tieu said immediately. You cooked with me, so I'll wash. He shook his head. Absolutely not. You're recovering. And I'm not made of glass. You almost were, he muttered. She nudged him gently with her shoulder. Uri, I'm okay. He stared at her for a long moment, as if double-checking every detail. Her posture, her steps, her breathing. When he finally exhaled, it was slow and shaky, like he'd been holding it for weeks. Fine, he said softly. We washed together. Shoulder to shoulder, they stood by the sink. She scrubbed. He rinsed. Occasionally, he flicked water at her on purpose. She retaliated. Soon the floor was half wet. The counter was damp, and they were both laughing like two kids splashing around in the rain. When they finally finished, Yuri took one look at the mess they created and nodded proudly. Perfect. I call this immersive cleaning experience. Tu Tieu snorted. You mean you're bad at washing dishes? Semantics, he replied, waving dismissively. With the kitchen finally restored to something resembling order, they moved to the living room. Tu Tieu lowered herself onto the couch carefully, her legs still stiff but no longer aching sharply. Yuri sat beside her, pulling a soft blanket over her knees. It smelled like fresh laundry and faint vanilla, her favorite. She glanced at him. Yuri. He replied, adjusting the blanket like it was royal fabric. You've been taking care of me nonstop. Aren't you tired? Tired? Yuri scoffed dramatically. I am a man powered by love and instant noodles. She burst into laughter. That's not healthy. It's efficient, he corrected. And besides, I didn't want you to feel alone, not even for a second. Her smile softened. She rested her head against his shoulder, letting her eyes drift shut for a moment. You're ridiculous, she murmured. I know, he said, but I'm your ridiculous. They sat there in comfortable silence, the kind of silence that didn't need music or words to feel full, the kind of silence that wrapped around them like another blanket, warm and gentle. After a while, Yuri reached over, tapping her nose lightly. Hey, want to go for a walk tomorrow? Just a short one, around the block. She raised an eyebrow. Already planning my physical therapy? Of course, he replied proudly. I've been researching recovery niche trends. She blinked. Recovery what? Niche, he repeated. Trending topics, best practices. You know, a whole universe of leg healing enthusiasts out there. She laughed so hard she had to grab his arm for balance. Yuri, you absolute maniac. Thank you, he said with a little bow. Then his voice softened. I just want you to feel normal again, to move without fear. The laughter faded into something warm, something real. Then let's walk, she whispered. Tomorrow. He nodded. The next morning, soft sunlight streamed through the curtains, painting the floor in gentle gold. Uri practically bounced out of bed the moment he remembered their plan. He made breakfast, eggs only slightly misshapen this time, and gently helped Tu Tieu to her feet. She took a slow, steady step. Then another. Uri hovered at her side like an overprotective bodyguard trying not to hover. They stepped outside together, the cool air brushing across their faces. The neighborhood was quiet, peaceful, the kind of morning where everything felt possible. "Ready?" Uri asked, holding out his hand. Tu Tieu took it. "I'm ready." Their walk was slow, but steady. She took measured steps while he matched her pace exactly, never pulling, never rushing. Every few meters he'd ask quietly, "You good?" And every time she squeezed his hand and nodded. By the time they made it back home, Tu Tieu felt a strange mixture of exhaustion and triumph. Her steps were shaky, but her heart was steady. Uri immediately beamed. "You did it. I am, officially, your walking coach." She rolled her eyes. "Please don't put that on your resume." No promises. Over the following days, her strength returned gradually. Each morning, they walked a little farther. Each evening, Uri cooked a little less disastrously. She healed. He calmed. Their ordinary daily life slowly stitched itself back together. And somewhere in the middle of all the chaos, all the silliness, all the tiny victories, a new kind of tenderness formed. Stronger, deeper, steadier. A new beginning. Warm, gentle, soft, in all the right places. One night, as they stood in the kitchen again, this time successfully making edible fried rice, Uri suddenly paused, spatula in hand. "Hey," he said, "you know what I realized?" She replied, sprinkling green onions into the pan. "You and I," he grinned, "we make a pretty good team." She smiled. "We always have." Uri nodded, stepping closer. "And nothing, no accident, no fear, no burnt chicken, is ever going to pull us apart." She placed her hand over his. "Not now, not ever." The stove crackled softly. The aroma of garlic and warm rice filled the room. The world felt small and safe and beautifully simple, and for the first time in a long time, they both felt it clearly. Not the fear of the accident, not the fragility of healing, but the certainty of love growing stronger after surviving something terrifying. Their lives didn't return to normal. They became something better. Together. After a serious accident leaves Tu Tieu temporarily unable to walk, Uri transforms into the ultimate supportive boyfriend. Every day, he brings her small gifts, from flowers to chocolates, turning recovery into something warm and hopeful. When the doctor finally announces she can walk again, Uri celebrates with an over-the-top, home-cooked dinner that quickly becomes a chaotic yet heartfelt memory. Their kitchen turns into a battlefield of burnt chicken, flying vegetables, and endless laughter. But the moment becomes a symbol of how deeply they cherish each other. As Tu Tieu slowly regains her strength, Uri stays by her side through every step, every wobble, every tiny victory. Together, they rediscover comfort, humor, and unshakable connection. The accident doesn't break them. Instead, it becomes the beginning of a gentler, stronger, and more loving chapter in their relationship.